Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that every choice you've made, from the way you dress to the career you pursue, was never truly your own. Imagine that beneath all your accomplishments, your smiles, your routines, there's a quiet voice that's never been heard because it's been drowned out by the noise of everyone else's expectations. Think about it. How many of your decisions have been guided not by what you truly wanted, but by what you thought others wanted to see? This is the silent prison of social validation, one of the most subtle, yet most powerful chains the human mind can wear. And in this video, we're going to explore how to break free from it, because the day you stop living for others is the day you begin to live at all. Stay until the end, because the final insight we'll share is the most important one, the one that will help you truly detach from the weight of other people's opinions and reclaim the freedom of your authentic self. Before we dive in, if you're someone who values deep reflection and personal growth, if you're on a journey to understand yourself and the world on a deeper level, make sure you subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because today we're not just talking about confidence or self-esteem, we're uncovering the psychological and philosophical truth behind one of humanity's greatest sources of suffering, the fear of judgment. Human beings are social creatures. We evolved to belong, to be accepted by the tribe, because isolation once meant death. This ancient survival instinct still drives us today. It's why rejection feels like pain, and why approval feels like safety. But in the modern world, this instinct has become distorted. We are no longer hunted by predators, but by opinions. Our sense of self-worth has been hijacked by social media, by comparison, by invisible standards of success and beauty that no one can truly meet. And yet we keep chasing them, fearing that if we stop, we'll no longer matter. Philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche warned about this. He spoke of the herd mentality, the tendency of individuals to conform, to sacrifice their uniqueness in exchange for acceptance. He said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Nietzsche believed that true freedom begins only when we stop living according to the morality of the crowd and begin creating our own values, when we dare to say, "This is who I am," even if the world disagrees. Psychologically, this struggle is deeply rooted in what Carl Jung called the persona, the mask we wear to interact with the world. The persona is necessary. It allows us to function socially. But when we identify too strongly with it, we begin to live through it. We start believing that we are the mask. We forget our true face underneath. And so, our lives become performances, each act carefully designed to earn applause, each word chosen not for its truth, but for its acceptability. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed silent just to avoid conflict? How many dreams have you delayed because you were afraid of what others might think? How many parts of yourself have you hidden because they didn't fit the image others expected from you? Each of these moments may seem small, but together they create a life that's not truly yours, a life scripted by the collective voice of others. But here's the truth most people never realize. No matter how hard you try, you can never fully control how others see you. Their opinions are not mirrors, they are projections, shaped by their own fears, beliefs, and insecurities. When someone judges you, they're not defining you, they're revealing themselves. The tragedy is that we spend so much of our lives editing who we are for people who aren't even paying attention, or who may never understand us in the first place. The philosopher Epictetus, a Stoic thinker, taught that the key to peace lies in distinguishing what we can control from what we cannot. We cannot control others' thoughts, their feelings, or their judgments. What we can control is our own mind, our choices, our responses, our direction. If you wish to be free, he said, do not wish for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do. To live free of others' opinions is not to become indifferent or arrogant. It's to understand that your worth does not depend on external validation, but on inner integrity. And here's where the transformation begins. When you realize that the fear of judgment is not really fear of others, it's fear of yourself, fear that without their approval, you'll find nothing left inside worth loving. But the truth is, you've always been enough. You just forgot, because you were taught to look outward instead of inward. So as we continue this journey, we'll dive deeper into how these social and psychological patterns shape our behavior, and how you can dismantle them one by one. because only by breaking free from the tyranny of others' opinions can you discover what freedom really means, not rebellion, but authenticity, not arrogance, but peace. There's something profoundly tragic about how early we learn to betray ourselves. As children, we express ourselves freely. We laugh loudly, cry openly, dream without limits. But somewhere along the way, the world teaches us to shrink. We learn that approval is currency, and that love often feels conditional. Be good, be nice, don't make a scene, fit in. Slowly, our authenticity becomes a negotiation. We start editing ourselves to avoid disapproval, and with every compromise, our true voice fades a little more into silence. Psychologist Abraham Maslow, known for his hierarchy of needs, placed self-actualization, becoming who we truly are, at the very top. Yet he observed that very few people ever reach it. Why? Because the fear of rejection outweighs the desire for authenticity. We become trapped at the lower levels of psychological survival, endlessly seeking safety in the approval of others. Maslow once said, "What is necessary to change a person is to change his awareness of himself." In other words, to reclaim your freedom, you must become aware of how often you abandon yourself in exchange for acceptance. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. How many people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, or lifestyles that don't align with their values, simply because they fear judgment? We disguise conformity as responsibility, people-pleasing as kindness, and fear as humility. But beneath it all lies the same wound, the belief that who we are is not enough. We wear masks to be loved, not realizing that love given to a mask can never reach the soul underneath. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard warned of this danger in the 19th century. He said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." Kierkegaard understood that the price of living for others is spiritual death, a quiet erosion of meaning that happens when your life becomes a reflection of what others expect, rather than a revelation of who you truly are. And the deeper tragedy is that we begin to lose the ability to tell the difference between the person we are and the role we play. But what if you began to live differently? What if, starting today, you made decisions based not on what will please others, but on what will bring you peace? Imagine how many of your burdens would disappear if you stopped trying to be understood by everyone. You would realize that the people meant for you don't need to be convinced. They simply recognize your truth and are drawn to it. The rest will fall away naturally. To live for yourself is not to become selfish, it's to become self-aware. It means recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup. When you constantly shapeshift to meet expectations, you exhaust your emotional energy. You become a ghost in your own story, constantly reacting to others' perceptions rather than acting from your own convictions. True self-respect begins when you stop asking for permission to exist as you are. Psychologist Carl Rogers, one of the founders of humanistic psychology, believed that the path to growth is radical self-acceptance. He wrote, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Real transformation doesn't begin with pretending to be better. It begins with embracing your imperfection with honesty and compassion. Every attempt to win approval through perfectionism or performance only deepens your dependence on external validation. But when you accept your flaws and your truths, you become untouchable, because there's nothing left for others to weaponize against you." Let's reflect on something deeper. Every opinion you fear is just a thought in someone else's mind, fleeting, unstable, and often forgotten within minutes. Yet we treat these thoughts as if they are laws that govern our lives. How many dreams have died because someone said they were unrealistic? How many artists never created, writers never wrote, voices never spoke, all because of imagined critics who, in truth, were too distracted by their own insecurities to ever notice? The freedom you seek begins the moment you stop taking those opinions so seriously. Even science supports this truth. Neuroscientists have shown that the human brain is wired to exaggerate social threats. When we feel judged, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, activates as if we're in physical danger. But the danger isn't real. It's psychological. The body reacts to judgment as if it were an attack, even though the only real battlefield is in the mind. Understanding this mechanism gives you power, because once you see the illusion, you can begin to break it. And here's a powerful shift in perspective. When people judge you, they're not seeing you. They're seeing the parts of themselves they've repressed or denied. What they criticize in you is often what they secretly fear or envy in themselves. This means that their opinion says far more about their state of consciousness than about your worth. When you internalize this truth, something remarkable happens. You stop taking things personally. You begin to live from your center, not from their noise. Think of the great thinkers, artists, and visionaries who changed the world. Socrates, Galileo, Van Gogh, Frida Kahlo. They all faced criticism, rejection, and ridicule. Yet they persisted, not because they were immune to judgment, but because they were driven by something greater than approval, purpose. Their legacy is proof that freedom does not come from being liked, but from being real. When you live aligned with your truth, your presence becomes magnetic, your peace becomes unshakable, and your life becomes your own. So, let me ask you this. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you stop trying to be admired, accepted, or validated? That version of you, and raw, unfiltered, honest, is the foundation of your freedom. But to meet that version, you must be willing to disappoint others. You must be willing to let go of the image they've built of you. Because until you do, you'll never know who you truly are. To truly live for yourself, you must confront one of the hardest truths about human nature, that the approval you seek from others is often the love you've denied yourself. We crave validation because deep down we doubt our own worth. We wait for someone else to tell us we're good enough, smart enough, beautiful enough, before we give ourselves permission to feel whole. But here's the paradox. The approval we seek externally can only fill us temporarily. Like a drug, it soothes the pain for a moment, but soon the craving returns. Only self-acceptance can end that cycle. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege demands courage. The courage to walk away from who you were told to be, the courage to be misunderstood, and the courage to face yourself without the filters of performance. When you start peeling back the layers of conditioning, it's not comfortable. You'll discover beliefs you didn't know you held, beliefs that told you you're only lovable when you're useful, only valuable when you're perfect, only accepted when you're agreeable. These are not truths. They are inherited scripts passed down from parents, teachers, and societies that themselves were trapped by the same fears. Breaking free from this conditioning means entering a kind of psychological wilderness. You lose the landmarks of approval and belonging that once guided you, and suddenly you stand alone. But it's in that solitude that real transformation begins. It's in that quiet that your authentic self, the one that's been buried under years of pretense, begins to speak. And when you finally hear that voice, it will be impossible to go back. Think of it like this. Living for others is like walking through life holding a mirror that only reflects what people want to see. You move, you speak, you act based on the reflection, never realizing that the mirror isn't even showing you. When you drop that mirror for the first time, you see the world not as they see it, but as it truly is. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Every decision becomes an expression of who you are, not a performance designed to please. The philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." He wasn't just talking about individuality, he was pointing to spiritual integrity. When you live authentically, your life becomes aligned. Your words, actions, and beliefs begin to harmonize. You no longer carry the tension of pretending. That alignment brings a peace that no amount of praise could ever match. Let's look deeper at why we fall into the trap of caring so much about others' opinions. It's not just social pressure. It's a neurological pattern reinforced by repetition. Each time you act to gain approval, your brain rewards you with a small dose of dopamine, the same chemical released when you eat, win, or achieve something. Over time, you become addicted to that reward, mistaking it for genuine self-worth. This is why breaking the habit of people-pleasing feels so hard. You're not just defying others, you're rewiring your brain. But the good news is this wiring can change. Through awareness and consistent practice, you can train your mind to seek fulfillment from alignment instead of applause. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, every time you say no when you mean no, express your opinion honestly, or act according to your values despite fear, you weaken the old neural pathways of dependence and strengthen new ones of freedom. It's not a single leap, it's a process of liberation, one choice at a time. Ask yourself now, what would you do differently if you stopped caring what people thought? Would you pursue that dream you've been hiding? Speak your truth without hesitation? Change your environment, your relationships, your entire direction? Those questions are not just hypothetical. They're the keys to your awakening. Because behind every fear of judgment lies an unlived life waiting for permission to exist. There's another layer to this journey, one that philosophers and spiritual teachers have explored for centuries. The fear of others' opinions at its root is the fear of death, not physical death, but ego death. The ego thrives on identity, image, and comparison. It survives through the eyes of others. So when you stop living for their approval, the ego panics. It feels like you're losing yourself, when in reality, you're only shedding what was never truly you. The mystic Rumi captured this beautifully. Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. When you live authentically, something extraordinary happens. Your presence itself becomes liberating to others. Your courage gives them permission to be real too. You become a mirror not of conformity but of truth. And that's how change spreads. Not through persuasion, but through example. You don't need to convince anyone to live differently. You simply become living proof that peace is found not in being liked, but in being whole. Let's reflect for a moment on the difference between approval and respect. Approval is cheap. It's given easily and taken away just as fast. It depends on trends, moods, and convenience. But respect, true respect, comes from authenticity. People might not always agree with you, but they'll feel your sincerity. And even those who don't like you will secretly admire your courage to stand firm in your truth. That's the kind of impact that lasts long after popularity fades. You must understand, the opinions of others are just passing weather. They shift with time, mood, and circumstance. You cannot build your house on that storm. Build it on the solid ground of your values, your truth, your vision. The moment you do, the noise around you begins to lose its power. You stop chasing acceptance and start radiating presence. And from that state, your actions become clear, your relationships become real, and your peace becomes unshakable. So, if you remember nothing else from this part, remember this. Freedom is not found in being liked by everyone. It's found in being at peace with yourself when no one understands you. That's where strength is born. That's where life begins. The moment you stop living for others is not the end of something. It's the beginning of everything. It's the rebirth of the self. And this rebirth doesn't come with noise or fireworks. It comes in silence. It's the quiet recognition that you no longer need to perform, explain, or prove your worth. You simply are, and that is enough. This realization may come gradually. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even lonely. You'll notice that some people will drift away when you start living more authentically. They were attached not to you, but to the version of you that served their expectations. Let them go. What remains, after the dust settles, are the connections built on truth. They might be fewer, but they will be real, and in that authenticity lies profound peace. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That line captures the human paradox perfectly. We spend our lives seeking external approval, while neglecting the one approval that truly matters, our own. When you finally reverse that pattern, you begin to live in alignment with your nature. You no longer chase validation. You embody self-respect. So how do you get there? How do you stop being a prisoner to other people's opinions and truly live for yourself? It begins with awareness. Every time you feel the sting of judgment or the urge to impress, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it's true to me, or because I want to be seen in a certain way? That single moment of honesty disrupts years of conditioning. It reminds you that your choices belong to you. Next, embrace solitude, not as isolation, but as self-connection. When you spend time alone without distractions, you begin to hear your authentic voice again. It's subtle at first, a whisper beneath the noise of social comparison, but it's always been there, waiting for you to listen. Meditation, journaling, long walks, or simply being in silence can help you reconnect with that voice. Because when you know yourself deeply, the opinions of others lose their power. They become just background noise. Then, practice radical honesty. Speak your truth with kindness but without apology. The more you do it, the stronger your inner voice becomes. Every time you honor your truth, your self-trust grows. And when you trust yourself, the external world no longer dictates your worth. Remember, confidence is not loudness. It's alignment between who you are and how you act. There will be resistance. The world often misunderstands authenticity because it threatens the comfort of conformity. But the greatest mistake you could ever make is betraying yourself to please people who don't even know who they are. True freedom demands that you accept the risk of being misunderstood, because only those who dare to stand apart ever discover what it means to truly belong. As you walk this path, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. Life becomes lighter. You stop comparing. You stop defending yourself. You start existing in the present, grounded and unshaken. You find yourself saying no when you mean no, and yes only when your soul aligns. That's not arrogance, that's integrity. You realize that authenticity is not about rebelling against the world, but returning to your essence, the unconditioned self beneath all expectations. And here lies the final, most powerful revelation, the one promised from the beginning. The opinions of others have no real power over you, except the power you grant them. They are thoughts, fleeting, intangible, impermanent. But your life, your truth, your purpose, these are real. Every time you act according to your inner truth, you reclaim that power. You become the author of your story instead of a character written by the crowd. Think of your life as a flame. When you live for others, that flame flickers, vulnerable to every breeze of opinion. But when you live for yourself, the flame steadies. It may burn quietly, but it burns true. No wind can extinguish it because its source is within. Remember what the great existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. You can't control what others think, say, or expect, but you can choose how you respond. You can choose to live guided by purpose, not perception. So from this day forward, make a quiet vow to yourself, to honor your truth above all noise, to live by your inner compass, not the map drawn by others, to measure success not by applause but by peace, because the most beautiful thing you can ever become is yourself, unfiltered, unafraid, and free." And if this message resonated with you, take a moment to breathe deeply, to feel the power of your own presence. You don't need anyone's permission to exist as you are. You never did. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your authenticity, your vision, your voice. If you found meaning in this journey, share this video with someone who's ready to awaken to their own freedom. Subscribe, leave your reflections in the comments, and join us as we continue exploring the path of self-knowledge, growth, and inner liberation. Because once you stop living for others and start living for yourself, life doesn't just change, it finally begins. Thanks for looking.